For Morton, the question is that the words proposed to be omitted stand part of the question, and I give the call to the member for Dunkley.
Thank you, Deputy Speaker. We are almost at the end of a Royal Commission into aged care in Australia. And it's been talked about a lot in this parliament, and I have no doubt will continue to be talked a lot about in this parliament. And citizens, aged care providers, academic experts, medical experts, a whole gamut of people have given evidence to the Royal Commission, and commissioners have examined what should be a system that we should be proud of and that should be looking after people that we value and have lived lives that have contributed to the quality of the lives that we're all living now with love and care. Before turning to why such a Royal Commission would have an interim report entitled Neglect, I think we should all pause and ask ourselves, how did we get to a position in Australia where we needed to have a Royal Commission into aged care? And what does that reflect on us as a society and a community? What does it reflect about the priorities that we have shown as communities and people, as governments? And sadly, and to our shame, it reflects very little that is good. The fact that we have a Royal Commission reflects positively on the people that pushed for it over and over again, that didn't want to see others suffer the way their parents, their loved ones, their husbands and wives had suffered in aged care, and disturbingly, their children sometimes had suffered in aged care, because we've seen the number of young people with disability in aged care. So it's a good thing that we have a Royal Commission and that we are coming to the end of it. And it's a very good thing that in the finest tradition of our democratic system, our aged care commissioners have been and continue to be fine, upstanding, diligent individuals who are taking their responsibilities incredibly seriously. And it is now the responsibility and the privilege of those of us elected to be in this parliament to make sure that the work of that Royal Commission is implemented, and to make sure that the effort that people have put in to make submissions and contribute to that Royal Commission is honoured. And it's the right and the privilege of all of us, but particularly so, it's the responsibility of the current government. This legislation today, as many people have said speaking before me, brings in some reforms that we are all hoping will assist in the home care system. But it is fair to say it's a small change. And as the member for Moreton said when he spoke before me, whilst it's a good change and will free up, we hope, some money that is being held that should be going into home care packages, it is arguably not the most urgent reform out of all of the reforms that should be needed. When we have Royal Commissioners who a year ago handed down a report that described our aged care system as a shocking tale of neglect, a sad and shocking system that diminishes Australia as a nation, it should be the case that any recommendations that that Commission made implemented immediately. It's perhaps intellectually correct to say, well, we'll wait for a final report, but it's not the correct thing to do morally when we know and we have the evidence that it's a sad and shocking system that diminishes Australia as a nation. I have no doubt that every other member of this parliament has constituents that have contacted them and has had the experiences that I've had of speaking to families in utter distress, particularly during this year of COVID in 2020, about the experience of their parents in particular, their grandparents in aged care. And every single member of this parliament who represents an electorate in Victoria has had that added experience of constituents beside themselves with fear and then with grief about COVID-19 going through the aged care system and tragically taking the lives of people before they were ready. They might have been elderly, they might have been sick, but they weren't ready to go and their families weren't ready to go, and they certainly weren't ready to lose their loved ones without being able to give them a final hug or touch their hand. And it is a shocking tale of neglect that our aged care system, which is the responsibility of the federal government, wasn't properly prepared to deal with the pandemic. And we can never let that happen again. Once is horrific. If it ever happens again, it will be a sad and shocking occurrence that diminishes all of us in this place, and in particular, those who are currently charged with the responsibility for not just funding but regulating the aged care system. Is it any surprise then that a growing number of Australians want to age in their home or age in place? And a growing number of Australians don't want their parents ageing in a residential facility. And that is not intended to be any sort of criticism of the amazing people that work in aged care facilities, the registered nurses, the aged care workers, people who work in administration. I mean, they are some of the most amazing people who do a job that is often as much about love as pay, because we know that they are overworked and underpaid. And we also know that people who work in aged care in homes are also amazing people. My mother-in-law, between the ages of about 60 and 72, was an aged care worker, cared for people in their homes. She used to describe the women she cared for as her old ladies, which always filled us with a little bit of laughter, of course, because Betty's wasn't a spring chicken. And the stories that she would tell me about what it took to care for people in their homes, particularly people who were suffering from dementia, and a number of the women that my mother-in-law cared for were Holocaust survivors and had been in Auschwitz and had dementia and would often be reliving something that no one should live once, let alone twice. I don't know how my mother-in-law did that job, and I'm so pleased that she did, and I want to honour everyone right now that does that job of caring for people in their homes. But we know that not enough people are able to get the help they need to care in their home, to be cared for in their homes, because of the huge waiting list for home care packages. 102,000 people waiting for home care packages. Over 3 years, 30,000 older Australians have died waiting for their approved home care packages. Over 2 years, more than 32,000 older Australians have entered residential aged care prematurely. And the government, the Prime Minister and the Treasurer and members of the government like to talk about the number of aged care packages that have been funded, and they have funded more packages. There was 23,000 packages in the October budget, but the sad reality is that that doesn't touch the sides. And when one of the draft recommendations for Council assisting the Royal Commission, was to clear out the waiting list for home care packages and do so by the end of next year, we know it's an urgent priority. So more has to be done, and has to be done now. And if we can't spend the money doing that now in the global pandemic, with the amount of money that's being spent on various things, then it's hard to know when we would be able to spend the money to make sure that older Australians die at home, having lived their final years in comfort and dignity. And we also know that being able to age at home increases your life and is good for you and is good for your family. And we need to facilitate more of that. I join others in calling on the federal government to do more, because there are still over 100,000 people waiting. In conclusion, I want to just briefly talk about what is happening in my community, which is incredibly exciting and is a tribute to some amazing medical practitioners, academics at Peninsula Health and Monash University, and is supported by this federal government. It was supported by me as the candidate and federal Labor. Had we won the election, we would also be putting in the funding the federal government is to support these projects. And I'm looking forward to, when Parliament finishes this week, to in the next week and a half be at Frankston Hospital with the current Minister for Health for a sod turning for one of the 3 projects I want to talk about briefly that are happening in my electorate of Dunkley, based in Frankston, but are going to benefit the wider Bayside and Peninsula area, and are going to benefit the whole country, and we believe probably the world. And one of the reasons why Peninsula Health and Monash University, which are located very close to each other in Frankston, have joined forces to do some world-breaking research into healthy ageing, mental health and addiction, is because sadly, in some regards, we are a community where addiction, mental health and healthy ageing, or not so healthy ageing, are significant issues. I mean, we have about 32% of our population are aged over 60, compared to Greater Melbourne's average of about 19%. So the first project that I wanted to briefly talk about, which is underway, is what was initially going to be called a Health Futures Hub, but is now going to be called a Centre for Healthy Ageing. Again, a collaboration between Peninsula Health and Monash University that the Health Minister has been active in supporting, and as I said, I was very proud as a candidate and now as a member for Dunkley to support. The hub, or the centre, is going to focus on designing and delivering new and better integrated models of care for vulnerable people, improving outcomes in aged care, looking at how we can help older people to age in their own environments, to live well at home, to live well in residential aged care. For example, how we can help people better recover and rehabilitate from falls, or not be engaged in falls in the first place, to help people have greater independence so they can live at home for longer and avoid unnecessary hospitalisations. There's going to be living labs, there's going to be academic researchers, there's going to be practical, hands-on work by practitioners to develop models that can be scaled up and rolled out across Australia. It has been my pleasure to have worked with Professor Christina Mitchell, who's the Academic Vice President and Dean of the Faculty of Medicine, Nursing and Health Sciences at Monash University, and Felicity Topp, the CEO of Peninsula Health, as they put together this model. This is a great example of institutions collaborating and then going to government and asking for support, and absolutely bowling over everyone that they presented their project to. The second thing that we are very much looking forward to, and the sod turning I'll be attending with the Minister very soon, is the academic centre at Frankston Hospital, which is also going to be a brand new hospital thanks to $500 million from the state government. But the academic centre, again, is a collaborative project between Monash University and Peninsula Health to train medical practitioners and to improve study and teaching. And there'll be a sod turn soon, and that is going to be a terrific addition to the health and education hub that all of us in Frankston and the Mornington Peninsula region believe that my electorate of Dunkley and Frankston can be. The third project that is happening with Peninsula Health that is absolutely going a long way to help people age well in their homes is called Mepax, and it is an alert system which is both now on iPads and a digital alarm with a connection to a call centre in Carrum Downs, where older people, if they don't answer the phone in the morning, they get a call from Mepax. If they fall and have a problem, they press the button, they get a call from Mepax. It is an amazing service which Peninsula Health has promoted across the country, staffed by amazing people. So we need to do more to help people age better in their homes, and I look forward to very much being part of my community and the broader national effort to do so.
I thank the member for Dunkley. The question is that the words proposed to be omitted stand part of the question. I give the call to